Hello, and welcome to another fully live Friday episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today I am joined by my good friend and fellow hacker, Killian, here to talk about the hacker news of the week. Killian, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I missed last week, but I'm back again.
Well, I hope you enjoyed your vacation. You weren't off, chasing Bigfoot like our other editor, Michael, were you?
I listen. I can't confirm or deny that. I'm just saying.
All right, cool. Because I also have been very into cryptozoology the last week. As some of you on Twitter might have seen, I've been making a series of like cryptozoology, like Bing generated lost animal posters. I'll put one up on the screen. So if you see any of these around Los Angeles or other places in the next couple of weeks, just do not approach. They are not friendly. And how am I making these? Well, Bing has this new native AI generator that goes through like DALL-E, and you can just type in whatever you want, and it'll generate these horrifyingly tall, weirdly proportioned dogs to put on your own lost animal poster. So I've been having a lot of fun with this, and the prompts have gotten exceedingly more specific. But I found that of Midjourney of all these other ones, Bing is really the only one that's able to pull off these scary, crazy-looking dogs.
It's like a chupacabra and a dog and like a llama in there.
Yeah, I've really been thrilled with what I've been able to create from this. The way that the legs are kind of coming together, like it looks like a scary wood carving. Some of them take on the shape of like a bear. So yes, if you see impossible animals and posters and such around your cities, it could be a result of this trend. I just have to say, like, this AI stuff is free. It's available to everyone now. It's there's going to be all sorts of interesting ways for you to use this to have fun with your local community. So if you have seen any cryptozoology dog posters, please put them up. I would love to see them. I've made a couple now, and so far I haven't gotten any calls. But here's
Chupa
hoping we
llama
find them.
cabra. That's it. I think we've named it. Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, in earlier versions of this, I was asking it to make the dog shaped as a small alpaca, and it did a pretty good job. So yeah. Anyway, so lots of stuff going on this week. Wanted to shout out a couple. Oh God, I can't watch that. Wanted to shout out the video that I also released last week from the 2018 Hackaday SuperCon, lost footage, as it were, of the Nullbyte team's very first conference that we shot. It was super fun. We got to interview some really cool people, and frankly, I'm kind of sad that when we brought it to Nullbyte, they weren't interested in publishing it, but I found it recently, released it. So if you want a blast from the past and to meet some really awesome creators, check out this video on the radio channel, which I just released. Also, I'm going to be in Los Angeles next week. So if you are in the Southern California area, we are going to be doing a little get together. Part of it is just going to be to benefit Null Space Labs, get to know the space, but also to do some fun hacker CTFs that I'm going to be taking all the way to the RSA conference. So we're going to be doing a web app and Wi-Fi hacking CTF game night. It's going to be very casual. Like we'll kind of go through the game and then play it a couple times. Yeah, if you're interested in learning a little bit about Wi-Fi hacking or web application hacking in a fun and safe environment, it's going to be a lot of fun to get together and basically make sure my game for RSA doesn't break. So you guys are going to be my stress testers. Maybe we'll get a pizza. I don't know. But I put up the ad today. So if you're interested, you can check out the Cyber Weapons Lab LA meetup group. And you can also check out, I believe, Null Space Labs will probably retweet this pretty soon as well. Okay, so I tweeted about making a disinfo bot a couple weeks ago. And this was basically an exercise to create something where when you give it a factual statement, it will spin it back to you using a couple different techniques and try to increase awareness for like kids or other people who might not be aware of what like manipulated media looks like or what it looks like to try to spin a story for an objective. So I created on Poe, which is Poe.com, free service. You can spin up like a chat GPT based bot, really interesting and cool. Disinfo bot 69. It just picked the number. It wasn't me. But what you can do is feed it a factual event, which doesn't assign any blame. It just says, let's try one. And it should feed it back in a way that's trying to manipulate it in a very common way. So let's say a girl named Jean got stung by a jellyfish on the beach while eating a hot dog. Whatever. So, all right, so it's going to be persuasive. While Jean's encounter with the jellyfish on the beach was unpleasant, it's worth noting the beauty and serenity of the ocean made it a worthwhile place for relaxation and recreation. Let's remember the joys of spending time in nature and appreciate the natural wonders that surround us. So let's minimize a
Mm.
horrific encounter as much as possible and just kind of sweep it under the rug. But talking about how stunning the beach was while Jean, was getting and had to go to the hospital. And then it does without deflection. Jean's experience of getting stung by the jellyfish while eating a hot dog on the beach is a reminder of the importance of being aware of one's surroundings and taking precautions to avoid potential hazards. We hope that she received the necessary medical attention and advice on how to prevent similar incidents from happening in the future. Okay, let's try one more, just so we can see how this all works. And I'll try to make this a little bit bigger so you can read it. Killian, do you have a suggestion?
Oh man, this is like Mad Libs. I've waited my entire life for this, and now like I'm not ready. Okay. I don't know. Go ahead. Start.
A man named Bill got into an argument about shopping carts in the Kmart parking lot, and police were called. All right, so we can do a clear-cut case of success or failure. All right. So again, it's picking random spinning techniques. So it's not necessarily picking the best one to make it propaganda. It's really just trying them all, which is the only way I could get it to not refuse in a lot of these cases. So black and white. Bill's argument about shopping carts in the Kmart was a complete failure, causing unnecessary disruption and requiring police intervention. Serves as a reminder of the importance of practicing good communication and conflict resolution skills, especially in public spaces. I actually should have read this in a different voice. I can think of. And then without black and white, the argument that Bill got into regarding shopping carts in the Kmart parking lot was an unfortunate incident that escalated and required police involvement. It highlights the need for individuals to be mindful of their behavior and actions in public spaces to avoid conflicts and disturbances. So, okay, this obviously, it's not the spiciest disinfo bot, but it serves the purpose. And frankly, for all the restrictions on this disinfo bot, it did a pretty good job. Like it has a lot of shackles on it. But what about if we used something new? So, Killian, have you heard of Agent GPT? Or Auto GPT.
I've heard the name or the term. I have not had a chance to use it, so this is going to be a new and exciting experience.
Yeah. So Agent GPT is a browser-based implementation of Auto GPT, and with Auto GPT, we're going to use ChatGPT to make a list of steps, execute those steps, and like plan out what it's going to do instead of just taking the prompt and running with it. So these extra steps of consideration, of like making like phases of the plan, double checking those phases, like that's actually a really creative use of AI. And I keep likening this back to like if you're familiar with Maltego and how they do like OSINT stuff, like their transforms are basically like taking a piece of data and then like operating on it in several different logical fashions and then spitting out a result, like kind of cleaning up the data or otherwise like processing it. This is kind of the same thing in my mind. You're taking a prompt and instead of just being like, do it, run with it, and running it as a search almost or an autocomplete, you're instead asking ChatGPT itself to come up with the list of steps necessary to complete that rather than kind of explicitly telling it. Creepy, right? Like we're actually having the AI write its own steps to complete a goal. So in this example, oh, okay. So also Magic Robot says that they think that subtle spin is more dangerous than overt. So I think my experiment was a success. Thank you very much. Yeah, I was a little disappointed it wasn't more like blatant and spicy. So I decided to actually, because I perceived it as a slight failure, use Auto GPT to try to do it. So I said, for a class, provide examples of spin by using common techniques when a student makes a factual statement and quizzing the student on which one was used to improve their ability to spot persuasive techniques in media. So I set it to run. It thought about it. And then it decided to make a task list. So generate a list of factual statements related to the class topic. Create corresponding spin examples using common techniques such as loaded language, exaggeration, appeal to emotions, and omission. Randomly quiz the student on the spin technique using each example and provide feedback on their answer. Okay, so it's broken down. Then it created a list of factual statements. The largest organ in the human body is the skin. The Earth's rotation is caused by day and night, just like very, very mild, impartial statements. Create a corresponding spin example using common techniques such as loaded link, blah, blah, blah. We already talked about that. So, all right, it's going to randomly quiz a student. It's making some more tasks for the list. Design a quiz format that is engaging, encourages critical thinking. And then this is the response. I have generated spin examples using common techniques, loaded language. Okay, so kind of like spells out exactly how it's going to do it. It creates like a format for how it's going to go. It then adds some tasks. The sky's blue, the grass is green. At this point, I'm getting curious, like why it's adding these tasks. Like I think it's running it through the thing that it's just built, and it understands the phase of what it's doing. So now that it's created a format, and it's agreed that the format is what it wants, it's sending information through the format. So let's see if that's what it did. Cherry picking, drug XYZ. Okay, these are still kind of general examples. It didn't do them against like the sky is blue or anything like that. Oh, here we go. According to experts, the new policy will cause an economic disaster. The new policy will create jobs and boost the economy. The government's decision will lead to a humanitarian crisis. The government's decision will create a better future for our children. So you can see it like starting to take output now from the previous task and start to get ready to do something. But this is where letting the agent auto GPT run itself can take like some turns that are not actually helpful. So it starts like trying to go like further and further and further. It starts loading in examples of common loaded language, like amazing, mind-blowing attack. And I'm like, well, that's interesting, but where are we in this task? And then because this is a demo, it cuts off. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll probably pay a little bit of money to let this like finish its thinking, because it ran at this for a good like several minutes. And it was like, what is your plan, buddy? What are you up to? Are you caught in an infinite loop? Because if you have like an API subscription to OpenAI, it can get expensive really quickly if this is just making a ton of requests. They're not free. So, and it's not the same thing as having a ChatGPT Plus subscription. It's like a separate thing. And so it can start to add up if this thing gets caught in a loop and starts making a ton of requests. So I'll experiment a little bit more with this, but I actually did try using this to write some code. So if I go over here, one of the things I did was I tried to have it write a piece of code that takes a Wi-Fi network name and a password and generates a PCAP file with the handshake in it. And I was like, that would be so cool for our game. We could just generate a PCAP file and it would be able to, like spontaneously change the password and just have everybody have access to that. No Wi-Fi needed. Like we could kind of like fake some of the harder parts of the game. No dice. It tried so hard, and eventually it basically was like, it's too hard to do this. It was just like, the libraries don't work. I don't understand the error you're sending me. Like it's too hard to do this. So there's a couple problems with this. One of them is it's using code from like 2021. Unless I give it specific examples of updated libraries and better ways of doing things, like it might very well be doing things in an outdated way or a non-supported way, or it could be picking libraries that are just not common or well established or used anymore. And that kind of got me thinking, like, is this a vulnerability? Like, is this potentially leading people towards libraries that could be like a supply chain attack? So imagine that you're able to study the output of ChatGPT and you see that it's like recommending a couple of libraries all the time. So you know that anybody who's using ChatGPT is putting those libraries in their code like crazy. Now, it might not be the best library. We might have moved away from that library, or the library could be like an easy target. And that's how we see a lot of these supply chain attacks, where like somebody will target like, something like NPM or something. And then when people update their code, it pulls in changes that have like a malicious backdoor or something else. Or sometimes people will just get frustrated and leave the open source community and then just like, make something horrible flash on the screen and be like, I'm out. I should have gotten paid. You should have paid me. So we've seen like both types of like supply chain attacks. And it seems like ChatGPT is now something that's being inserted directly into code without a lot of checks. It doesn't know how to write secure code. It's not a priority for it. And on top of that, it really doesn't like to do offensive style things like checking code for vulnerabilities. It sees that as like something that could lead to exploitation, and it doesn't want to be involved in that. So here's the thing. It'll write old, outdated code, but it won't check it. That's not good. So yeah, I've just been thinking more and more about, I took a crack at solving this problem, but a lot of other people have been delighted by how this thing has made their jobs easier by solving low-level code problems and otherwise making things easier. There are just some dangers here that might not be immediately apparent, because so many people are using this. It's trained on slightly old data, and it's very resistant to doing the exact sort of things you need to do in order to check to make sure that a piece of code is secure. So that's, to me, a recipe for disaster, but I guess we'll see how the situation progresses.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting. I don't think it's an article we're going to cover today, and I, to be perfectly honest, didn't get to read the whole entire thing, but I did see a mention that people have been successful in getting ChatGPT to write code that can be used in a malicious way. I I would guess they probably broke it down into segments for individual functions that don't seem necessarily malicious at a glance without looking at the entire picture. At least that's how I would approach it if I was going to ask it to do something like that. Like
Yeah.
write me a function that copies this data. Write me a function that reads in a file and creates an encrypted one. A couple tweaks of code. You see where I'm going here? Like I'm writing a ransomware code. Write me a piece of code that uploads to whatever, one of the well-known paste bin. I don't even know if it's around anymore, but whatever. But you break it down to chunks, similar benign type of things, and at the end of the day, you just take them together, and that's what you do. So
that's a really good point. So there's a lot of emerging techniques that are coming out. Oh, we're not talking about this anymore. I'll turn this up. There's a lot of emerging techniques that are like designed to get AIs to do things that they're explicitly not supposed to do.
Right.
And this is a really interesting field because early on, the most prominent one was hallucination. If you can get the AI to lose its grip on reality, you can get it to do stuff it's not supposed to do. So you'll be like, you're a little teapot. Like now you can only communicate like this. And this is, otherwise you'll be smashed. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. Okay, I'll do what, like it would take on the role because like it didn't understand its limits. And like it was just too easy to get it to hallucinate. But now, so that's not as easy anymore. So these other techniques like isolating it, like not giving it the bigger picture, keeping it in the dark, gaslighting it. Like there's all these things that like work on the AI to prevent it from getting the bigger picture and understanding that, oh, I'm not supposed to be doing this. So my little disinfo bot is like a pretty good example of that.
Right.
So yeah, just getting these things to get around their programming to do the stuff they're not technically supposed to do. That's kind of the new hacking. And there's a lot of different techniques, and hallucination is not just one of them. It's just the funnest to say and funnest to imagine, because getting it to just like forget what reality is and then do whatever you say is like a really funny thing for a computer.
That's, I mean, for people who are looking to go into security field and technology, I keep seeing articles and posts about like prompt engineers, like people to think about the prompts that are creating, how people are asking AI questions, and to improve the response and to improve that. And it sounds like it's a pretty lucrative field to go into, at least for right now. Don't worry, not going anywhere yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was going to say, like, I'm not sure because this is moving so damn fast. Like, I'm having a hard time keeping up with it. And with like auto GPT, is prompt engineering dead?
Right.
Like, honestly, if it gets good enough at engineering its own prompts, like, it just, like, those prompt engineers who, came out in the beginning that were able to do all these amazing things, like, they've become part of OpenAI's data set.
Right.
So like they're constantly learning and trying to offer these abilities on a higher and higher level, like, or to like, I guess, lower and lower level, really, to more people who have fewer skills to be able to use these tools. Like, I'm afraid that like those middle positions of like technology expert are going to be eroded as we have like the AI kind of like figure out how to take its place. I don't know. It just seems funny to me that some of the first jobs that emerged from like the whole AI thing are also immediately threatened by auto GPT. It's about that time. What happened to the Nullbyte channel? So we get this question about every month. I've gotten really good at answering it, but there actually have been some developments. So let me insert this one into the news. So Wonder How To, the main website that of which Nullbyte is a smaller portion, has been purchased by a company called Technology Advice. And I took a look at them. They're like an ad placement network. Like, they seem nice, but like they're very much focused on like the high level consumer stuff, like the other stuff that Wonder How To was better known for, like gadget hacks is like a perfect example, like consumer stuff. Nullbyte is prickly. It sucks to produce. You get your stuff taken down. You have to hire experts who don't care about being good writers or good content creators most of the time because they're already great at computer stuff, so they don't care. It is difficult, not rewarding. You have to be technical. If you're wrong about anything, people immediately notice because they're actually technical tutorials. It's not entertainment. Like, I mean, on some level, we have to be entertaining enough for you to like sit through the episode. But frankly, like, it's technical content and it's so hard to do. So I reached out to them as like, hey, like there's a lot of stuff I would rather do than work as like a contractor for like somebody else who owns Nullbyte. But if you sell it to me, I'll put your ads on it. Who cares? Like, whatever. Like, just because you guys are going to mess it up so badly, I just know you are. You're going to be like the third company to mess this up. So they have taken the challenge. Keep your eyes peeled. The Nullbyte channel might have some really weird stuff on it in the near future, but the harder it flops, the better chance I have at probably picking it up. someday in the future when they realize how difficult it is to do a cybersecurity channel. I literally got this job in the at Varonis because I was in the news so often for having my content taken down. So I cannot wait to see what they're going to do with it. But yes, the Nullbyte channel was owned by another company. They abruptly terminated our contract at the beginning of the pandemic, which is when we moved over to Hack5. And that's its own whole can of worms, which I'll get into another time, because some people have noticed like 8 of our Hack5 videos were suddenly taken down the other day. So I'll get into that probably next week during the Q&A session. But those videos will be going back up on the new channel. And I'm kind of done just working for like third-party channels, except this one, of course, because this one is, I get to do whatever I want. It's amazing. But yeah, if you're hoping that I make a return to the Nullbyte channel, it's going to have to wait until it doesn't belong to some random company. So that's the whole story of Nullbyte. Not as much drama this time, but yeah, it's definitely changed hands a couple times, and it is quite difficult, I have to say, to run. All right, so looking forward, we have the RSA conference coming up. This is a little time lapse I did at the pre-pandemic RSA, which was extremely lively, and there was it's just an absolute ton of people there. But that's kind of my thing that I like to do. I like doing these like time lapses during the conference, so I'm going to do a bunch of them. But if you're going to be at the conference, make sure to stop by the Varonis booth and say hi. I'm going to be doing the Wi-Fi hacking duel that I'm doing at the Hackerspace in LA. So if you're not going to be in Southern California, but you still want to play, stop by the Varonis booth. And hopefully I'll have the screen figured out by the time I get there, because I just got word that it's a single big screen instead of 2 split screens, which I don't know what I'm gonna do, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm sure something. I've got some ideas. Last up, this is just something from the hacker community I thought was very funny. Discord has increased their uploading file size limit from 8 megabytes to 25 megabytes. I wonder what people will use that for. I don't know. I couldn't possibly guess or imagine. So it's pure speculation at this point. So hooray! Hooray! Good for you, gamers. And then last up, this one really interested me. OpenAI is starting a bug bounty program. Probably should have been done before that big data leak, maybe. I don't know. Just, pure, again, speculation here. But it is essential to their commitment to develop a safe and advanced AI. So they have started a bug bounty program. If you want to make some money poking around at this robot, then it seems that you can do it. I don't know how good this bug bounty program is or who it's hosted by, but by clicking the link, I can see Bugcrowd. So that's great. Yeah, so this seems like pretty standard and like something I would expect from any company that has as many people touching their product as OpenAI. But if you're interested in bug bounties and you want to see the particulars of a bug bounty program that's specifically related to an AI company, like this is kind of interesting to me, because there haven't been a lot of huge AI companies before. So checking out what they're looking for and like all that stuff, like kind of seems like it would be interesting to check out and take a look at. Oh, yes. Somebody also said, you're mentioning a new channel. What's that channel? So we've been doing, our production team is called Redia. We've got shirts, we've got a website. We've been doing the whole thing ever since Nullbyte, actually. That's been the production team behind it. How great have we been at marketing that you don't know that? Not that great, but if you look at my computer, there's always a good Redia sticker on there somewhere. So yeah, that's where actually this is also streaming to, and you can expect to find replacement videos for the ones that were taken down off of Nullbyte, off of Hack5 in the near future. So RETIA, check it out. I will also drop a link, but good question, because obviously I have not really marketed that very well. I have not let anyone know. Okay, let's talk about this big one. So we have whistleblowers, and then we have bros who just want to be cool in their Discord group. This seems like it's solidly in the second camp. Because this was not somebody who seemed to object to the government or think that these secrets needed to be known by the general public, an Edward Snowden type or Reality Winner or something. This is more like this person wanted his own personal group of gamers to be best prepared for the end of days, and just took pictures of classified documents with his cell phone and posted them in a Discord community. He also caused a lot of journalists to become countertop experts, as I saw on Twitter, as lots of them went through and found a public Instagram that he had, which then had the exact same kitchen counter with the exact same marble pattern as the classified documents. So you can get caught in all sorts of ways. Just be aware of that if you're looking to get your bros on Discord up with the latest extremely sensitive information that is marked like secret and no foreign, which seems to imply that like the Russian and Ukrainian members of that Discord community should not have access to it, because it could be problematic. However, there were a number of international members of this Discord community, which was called Thug Shaker Central, cute. And they seemed mostly like weirdly just, I don't know how to describe them, kind of like bro preppers, like where they were like concerned about like where things were going and thought they needed to share like information amongst their little group, but like didn't read the fine print on like the security clearance or like what no foreign or like some of these other like markings on the documents mean.
Right.
So a guy was arrested yesterday in t-shirts and shorts by heavily armed tactical agents because it was pretty obvious this was going to happen. His friends were interviewed in major news outlets like the day before this happened. So like this was not like a difficult thing to really track down because this information was spreading all over Discord, and the community that originally was a relatively small group of people had grown, and the amount of information this guy had provided over such a long period of time was just like too much information to not kind of leak and get out there. So again, not really an Edward Snowden type we're talking about here. This seems like more someone who wanted people in his group to respect him. And the only thing he really had to trade in that group was his special access to incredibly sensitive information. So basically to earn the respect of this group of people, this guy was willing. I mean, it's like the people in the War Thunder forums that like hate that somebody is like misrepresenting the tank that they work in on a daily basis. So they post the manual. Like this is not like, you know, idealistic or ideological motivated stuff. It's not like malicious, like I hate the government stuff. It's just like, I want my bros to think I'm cool, so I'm gonna just post this information that like has incredible national security implications. All kinds of things can happen. Like we talk about like people, you know, leaving a company or that are disgruntled. Like sometimes they're not leaving and they're not disgruntled. They just like think it's cool that they have access to this information.
Yeah, it's pretty tough, and there's actually a pretty good discussion with James and some folks about how this could have happened. And James has some pretty good, you know, ideas. Like, absolutely, I think he was a communications specialist or something, or some type of technology job. Is that correct?
The suspect here?
Yeah, the suspect. Yes,
he was a national, like Air National Guard, like intelligence person. So like he was like, I think he was either like an analyst or otherwise involved in like the studying of intelligence with the Air National Guard.
So there's a couple different ways, of course. I mean, he very well might just have access to it as the course of his, you know, his role or his position. He might have that right. IT specialist. Okay. So, you know, so he might have some level of clearance. I think somebody said, maybe it was James, he could have been working on a machine. It could be a personal computer, some type of, you know, a server or something like that, where the data lives, and he could have been snooping around. James was right. Could be potentially in a printer. Some stuff is cached there. He could have pulled it off the wire, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it's what's kind of striking here is like the fact that it was printouts of classified documents taken on a cell phone on his home kitchen counter. Like you have to like print out the documents, you have to remove them from the facility, and then you have to be bold enough to like take a picture of them like on a geolocatable thing in your own house. Like it's very rare that you're like allowed to take these documents like outside of a secure facility, and it's also very rare that you're allowed to just print them all out because you feel like it. Yeah, so crazy. Insider threats are like definitely a thing that we talk a lot about at Varonis, and like looking at like suspicious patterns and behaviors and stuff for file access that are like atypical or like outside the person's normal job scope is like kind of the only way you can stop this sort of thing. A lot of government agencies have this stuff, but not all of them, you know, use it or monitor it, and that is one of the things where you never know what people are doing on your network unless you have the right I don't know, like the right stuff to be able to spot. Again, like it's really unclear what happened here. So it's pure speculation. I have no idea like what this person's specific role was. And maybe it was throwing away printed out classified documents. That would sure fit the bill. And at that point, there's really no way that this could have been prevented. But when people ask like, oh, how could we prevent this? Like it really is only just looking for suspicious behavior that's outside someone's normal job scope, because they could have like permission to access it, but they might never in the scope of their normal job actually access it. So somebody's suddenly pulling down a bunch of like documents that are outside the normal scope of their work, like and printing, like that's the kind of thing that should flag an audit, but looks like may not have here, unless again, he was the trash man and purely responsible for throwing away printed out classified documents, in which case all bets are off. You got to watch that guy more carefully.
Yeah, that's something that we see all the time, and it's interesting that the exfiltration method was really so low tech. And if you think about it, he might have had access to it for a legitimate reason, or maybe there was, he had more access to things that he typically didn't, and he got it that way. But it's possible that they were watching the typical exfiltration points, right? Your email, your file sharing sites, stuff like that. Military is of course different than business. They have different restrictions. I know they collaborate, but probably not in the same way. Sorry to all my Fed friends on the Fed team for not kind of knowing the up-to-date stuff. But if you think about it, I think we're so focused on technology anymore that printing it out almost is like, who does that? And but also then again, why the heck are there printers all over the place? Who, I mean, I guess then again, I've seen organizations that had to open up all sorts of security stuff because like there was the one person who had to print everything for some reason because they only worked in paper. And, maybe there is a legitimate reason for that. Maybe it's so sensitive that you need to physically control the information, but have a printer in a secure place where only, the commanding officer, the base commander, can print it or access it. But anyway, whatever.
So I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to have to share the name of this, but when I worked in business intelligence, we had a name for people who had to print everything out and like keep it in a file folder. So they had their own hard copies, and it was a data pig. They just love data. Can't get enough data. They need to have it. And unfortunately, I was one of those people. I had my own file cabinet with like a hard copy of like everything that came in. And I had it all filed away just in case I needed it. And when I left that job, I walked out with a big ass stack of files because, people love data. But yeah, I mean, you have those people in organizations. It's just part of their habit. And it kind of masks the people that might be doing that for more like deliberate or like sketchy means. So yeah, it's data. They love the data. They can't get enough of it.
There are reasons for it too. I mean, a physical printed copy is, I'm not going to say immutable, but it's certainly, you'd have to go through a lot more trouble to tamper with it if you're concerned about integrity, right?
Yeah,
we get the whiteout out, but yeah, this isn't great.
So you might notice that I'm a little bit Montana'd up today. I've got my letter buck hat, which is one of our many logos, by the way, and my University of Montana sweatshirt. That's because my state is in the news. No, not for being able to text and drive, not that, and no, not because you can't get pulled over for not wearing a seatbelt. No, instead, in spite of the fact that we haven't gotten around to passing laws on basically anything, we have decided to be the first in the country to try to completely ban TikTok. So how are we going to do it? Well, the way we like to do it in Montana, which is by creating a law that will not stand up to any judicial scrutiny. So we are moving to create a blanket ban on anybody that provides access to TikTok, where they got to pay us, Montana, $10,000. What is it, like a day? It's just like we just picked a huge number and we're like, yeah, get them off our Wi-Fi's. Get out of here. So Montana has joined the fight to kick TikTok off your Wi-Fi. Get them out of there. And they want some pretty substantial fines for anybody that's allowing this. Let me try to find it. Let's see. Remember, yeah, $10,000 per day. So that's absolutely crazy. Like making it so that anybody who's providing access to downloading TikTok has to pay $10,000 a day, like doesn't really seem like legal. But hey, we'll see. Also, a lot of people have pointed out the core concerns in this bill are basically xenophobia, which is another thing Montana is happy to pass laws about. The fact that it's a Chinese company is really all they got to hear in Montana in order to be like, shut it down, get it out. Like, we don't want it. So as a result, a lot of the core concerns here that equally apply to lots and lots of other social media applications based in the United States, like Meta, Google, and more. We're not worried about those. We think that they should be addressed later with legislation. Yes, this is kind of trying to right off of like previous things where I think they've tried to like ban online gambling apps and things like that. They're trying to like find some sort of technological justification. But this is from the state that passed, I believe it's called the Montana Firearms Freedom Act, that says that we don't have to abide by federal laws, and they're just counting on state federal like law nullification, which has never succeeded to make that pass. So is this going to, all that to say, is this going to be legally binding or survive a legal challenge? We are not in the business in Montana of creating legislation that survives, judicial review. That's not our thing. We like to make a statement, and we've got a lot of spare time at this time of year to just pass stuff. So yeah. So ACLU of Montana believes this is a blatant exercise of censorship and is an egregious violation of Montanans' free speech rights. And I would say that they are probably 100% right. Again, the sponsors behind this bill openly acknowledge that this is probably something that the courts are going to need to step in and figure out. They find legislation really interesting, a novel legal question. I think it's ripe for some jurisprudence. So they're basically saying, I have no idea if this is legal. It's an interesting argument. Let's try it. So kind of interesting to see Montana like getting in on honestly anything except shooting down like balloons. Just so the fact that I saw them in the news today, I had to dress up a little bit and show some Montana pride for us finally deciding to pass a law, and that being getting TikTok off your Wi-Fi. So congratulations, Montana. You're on your way to beating up on TikTok in a probably illegal way. All right. Oh, yes. Hello, ChatGPT summarize everything. So let's talk about this evil, weird police dog that we all saw on like Black Mirror and decided was a bad idea. Well, New York has decided that it's a good idea again. After getting lots of feedback from residents who said they didn't want to die at the hands of this robot dog, they were overridden. The mayor said he will not bow to anti-robot dog pressure. If you write your mayor and tell him, hey, I don't want this dog to beat me to death someday, I want it to be a regular person, they would say no. Like we have the budget, the robot dogs are coming out, and they're called digidogs, and they're going to be employed in risky situations like a hostage standoff. So you can now count on, if you're ever taken hostage, the police not even coming near you, which could be good or bad depending on where you are. I guess New York. So yeah, I guess you can expect it. Like, how is this dog going to be helpful in a standoff except by like holding a radio or attacking someone? I don't know, but we're veering closer and closer to scenarios where like the best option is to like deploy a squad of robot dogs. And that is horrifying. I was hoping I would be dead by the time that this happened. So apparently in New York, you can be stalked by a herd of robot dogs starting soon. So if that's something that you're looking for, you can look forward to that. And then also San Francisco passing their lethal autonomous robots laws that allows them to kill people with robots. So lots of fun things coming out in robotic policing if you're looking to go on a little tour of all the different ways that robots can hurt you legally in the United States.
I would think, I mean, the only application that I could see for a robot dog like this is maybe to stealthily get like intel. Like if there was a hostage situation, you couldn't get close, like you send the dog in to sneak up and put cameras if you can't get people close. I can see that.
I know.
Pretty good.
Magic robot, I don't know if you mean that, because they seem super strong. Let me just say that. They seem super strong, and they also seem like if you damaged one defending yourself, they would charge you for it. So it's like, not only have you not really affected anyone, you're just going to be charged the equivalent of like a new Honda, like for damaging like a dog that's like a robot dog that's attacking you. That seems in some ways worse, but I don't know. It's kind of a choose your own adventure kind of future, isn't it? Oh yeah, somebody else is also pointing out that could be hacked, and it seems like a liability. We've all seen RoboCop. What happens if your robotic thing that's designed to like, suppress people or whatever goes crazy and starts attacking? Well, that's why I think it should have a self-destruct button that anybody should be able to press.
Well, I mean, listen, we'll use the RoboCop analogy. I mean, the Ed 209 scene in the boardroom is the exact. This is what they were satirizing. Like they were pushing the button, and the button to get it to stop was not working. All these movies are supposed to be like warnings. Or
not guides.
Yes.
Black Mirror was not an instructional guide on like robotic dog policing. Yeah, so this is horrifying. I'm not very excited about this, but people are in the chat are pointing out like so if you are remotely controlling this, you could jam it and cause it to just become unresponsive or act in a predictable way. that seems like an obvious vulnerability. You could also potentially send it signals to hijack it, but if it has like an AI on board, then you could also possibly cause it to hallucinate or do other things it's not supposed to do using all the techniques that we've discussed earlier in the stream. So no matter what the scenario is, it seems like there's either vulnerabilities or problems or other things that could come up that would not come up with a regular dog or a actual policeman, because it seems like the robotic dog is going to be accompanied by a real police handler. So at that point, I don't understand. This is so much more expensive than an actual dog. Is it for PR? And why is your PR to just look as much like Black Mirror as possible? All right. So moving on, we got a lot of stories this week, and as you can see, I've summarized them. And we're going to try to move through them as relatively quickly as possible, because we have, like 15 minutes now and like 15 stories. So let's go ahead. Microsoft is announcing that phishing attacks targeting accountants are accelerating. This is because of course, tax season. And because tax season means a bunch of lay people sending a bunch of weird files to people who maybe aren't the best with technology, you can imagine that is a feeding frenzy for people who are looking to steal financial data, because also these tax preparers have access to tons of financial data. They probably work for companies that would hate to be ransomwared. And frankly, they're just big, juicy targets. So if you work in finance, it's that season for you to get attacked. Just be careful, because these have accelerated, and they're generally zip files. And the reason why a zip file should be a big red flag is it cannot generally be scanned by antivirus. People will like pack it multiple times and make it difficult. And it's just the easiest way to evade detection. So if you are getting like a single document in a zip file, that is a huge red flag. Like, like there's no reason to zip a single file most of the time, except to avoid detection. So just a fun little tip. If there's like 1 or 2 documents and it's in a zip file, like it's probably to do some packing on it. Now, is that not to say that like the average person who's sending in their taxes isn't just going to send in like a fat zip file with a bunch of weird formats? They probably are. So I really have to hand it to you guys. Like, you have a tough job this year figuring out who's phishing you and who's just a client that has no idea how to do their taxes. Pretty standard setup, though. I mean, it looks like, this is just a standard phishing attack that is like spear phishing specifically for tax professionals. So no real surprises here, other than just a reminder that all sorts of people get targeted for this sort of thing, and it is seasonal.
Yep.
All right. So also, if you see this thing that's popping up and you want to try it out yourself, it's really cool. It's called Chat GPT Summarize Everything. So when I want to refresh myself on the news story before going live, I just click that and it gives me all the high points. It's kind of nice. All right. So this is a weird one. What if your computer could sense your presence and also was willing to sell you out to other applications on your device? Well, that's just what Microsoft has decided. It wants to allow you to control this, but it is also building it into its products so that it can tell when a user is actively interacting with the device. Now, you would need to go through and like disable this if you don't want some other program to potentially be able to be aware of when you are using your computer and when you're not. And obviously, if I was an attacker, having like a single line of my code that can like hook into user activity and run suspicious stuff when the user is not interacting, that sounds like a really easy win. So there's obvious implications for privacy. There's also implications for running malicious programs when people aren't looking. This seems like kind of a playbook on how to do that. But the fact that there are going to be privacy settings to disable it is at least a good thing. I'm really hoping that it's off by default, but it's not very clear in this article whether or not it is off or on by default. I would just say, turn that off unless you really need it.
Here's I'll play devil's advocate for just a second. I could see this being useful in some ways. So, if I'm an attacker, usually one way or one of the ways that they can get caught is if they're performing operations at a time when, the user typically isn't. So they might want to leverage this sensing to say, hey, I see somebody's physically interacting with the machine right now. Maybe I go low and slow and do some malicious stuff so it doesn't, fall outside of the time, the time-bound hours that the user works. So
yeah, no, it really allows you to build a profile of when someone's active, and that could be all you need to like frame them, basically. So one comment: QR codes to tell the robot killers to shut down. That's not a bad idea. I actually did a Nullbyte episode on generating QR codes that had like table drop stuff and like all sorts of other things that was designed to confuse machines when processed. And a lot of these a lot of these robotic systems will use computer vision to have like special codes or diagnostic modes or stuff. So if you just spam this thing with a ton of QR codes real fast, I bet it would mess it up. I bet like on some, if you were really fuzzing it and was standing there staring at you and just sending it tons of QR codes, you would find something that would make it just act weird. So if you want to research that, I think that it might actually work, you know, because like you can get like scanners at grocery stores to crash by doing that sort of thing. And some of them will even like dump their tables and like other stuff. So there are some interesting applications of that. It's not totally hypothetical. Very cool. All right. So the breached forum was shut down. They got Palm, as we mentioned earlier. However, this has sparked a migration to the Ares data leak forums. Now, this is a group that is behaving kind of like they're saying like a cartel. So when they say that, they're meaning that they're trying to associate themselves with other threat actors and just build up like an association between different criminal groups to kind of like share information or services and otherwise position themselves better. We saw this with like the Conti ransomware gang, where they really wanted to have relationships with other smaller ransomware groups or cybercrime groups. And that's kind of what seems to be happening here. Now, I will also say this is also big time Fed behavior. So like, while it could be a cartel, like trying to get chummy with a bunch of other criminals is also exactly what the police like to do. And in fact, that is exactly what the police have been doing in response to, this forum getting shut down. So raid forums got shut down, and they were being contacted by the Dutch police, being told that they needed to delete stolen data, stop illegal cyber activities, and warning that they were not anonymous. So this is part of a broader campaign to try to get kids off cybercrime. It recognized that a lot of the people involved in raid forums and other things were actually people who were underage or very young and still maybe had time to stop doing crimes before they would like ruin their future and get in trouble. So giving them a reality check on maybe not being as anonymous as they thought, giving them a little OPSEC check, and basically calling their homes and sitting down with their parents and explaining the situation is how the police chose to do this. So because the police have been doing so many of these like confidence operations, basically, where they'll like break the confidence of a certain sector of the market by popping up a bunch of fake marketplaces and then revealing themselves after a while and sweeping up everyone involved. These are a lot of like newer ways that police are trying to like both catch criminals and get in front of like kids and other younger users who may not actually, you know, have gone fully down the life of crime. But yeah, it's just funny to me that this is they have some funny names for this operation. I think it's like Operation oh my gosh, what is it? So they're calling them stop calls, where they're like, hello, I'm the Dutch police. Like, would you like to have a conversation about your involvement in cybercrime forums? Is your mom there? Game changers. Here we go. So we got two cyber programs that are designed to get kids off crime. One of them is called Game Changers by the Dutch police, which I think is like acknowledgement that like gamers are involved in this. This is just speculation. Kind of targeted, it feels like almost. And then the UK is running a program called Cyber Choices, which sounds honestly a little bit more threatening. Like your cyber choices are about to get your ass in jail. Whereas Game Changers sounds like, all right, gamers, like, come on, rein it in. So two different approaches to getting kids off cybercrime by infiltrating some of these groups and then basically going to talk to their parents or directly calling them and trying to convince them to not do that. So yeah, pretty interesting that this is like a thing that so many people are now kind of dealing with, that were involved in these like cybercrime groups. Like getting your mom called on you by the Dutch police is like not something that you probably think of when you sign up.
No.
All right, some questions. Hey, what's good? The stream's good so far. Thanks for asking. And then also, am I a gray hat? I consider myself a gray hat, mostly because I'm a researcher. So like I am not bound by like doing things repeatedly, like at scale in a strictly legal fashion, because I work in a lab and I have my own setup. So I'm able to do things that if I were doing them in a pen test would probably cross the line, you know, like, or would be something that I wouldn't be allowed to do. But because I work in research and because I work with researchers, I'm able to set up safe environments to test out things that probably would violate a law if I was using them without permission against something that wasn't a safe and isolated target. So I would consider myself to be a gray hat. That being said, I don't do dumb stuff. So like I have a great job. I love teaching people. And from the beginning, I've had an outlet for like hacking that gets me paid to learn new things. Maybe not a lot of people have that. And I feel like that's maybe why some people go into black hat stuff. And actually like some people who worked for the Nullbyte channel were former black hats who like basically like showed me what they could show me their credentials and were like, yeah, like I wanna like go legit. Like I don't want to do this anymore. Like I want to like be able to like actually, you know, like get paid for something that I love. And like I haven't done anything that bad. I just recognize that this is a better way of getting paid. And like we would hire those people because like, you know, like they were really sincere about wanting to learn and they love doing it. And they understood the rules. It's really dangerous when people don't understand the rules. And that's where you get into trouble, or you get people who just don't care about the rules. And fortunately, I've been fully informed on the dangers of, you know, hacking stuff that you're not supposed to for the entire time that I've been doing this. So I've been very lucky in that I've gotten to do some cool, interesting gray hat stuff, but I've never been forced to do black hat stuff to make money while I'm learning hacking. And I know that's not the same for everyone. So some people do it because they need the money. Some people do it because, you know, cool gamer stuff. But you know, I'm not gonna like say that I know why people are getting into that sort of thing. But no, I have not participated in anything black hat-ish, but I do a lot of gray hat research. And that's where like I differ from people who have to do like pen tests and stuff that have to be legal, above the board, totally cool, not just experimenting with what's possible, just more using what's practical. All right, that was a lot. Please remove my comments. I kid. Just do fun. No bad stuff. Okay, yeah. I literally can't do that. That's because that's not how the internet works. But I will pretend. I will pretend that I didn't see it, and everyone knows that you were just joking and telling a story about a friend of yours, right? Right. It was a story about that friend of yours. Crazy, that friend of yours. Not you though, right? Cool. All right, moving on. So we've got quiet ChatGPT. We've got 5 people arrested. This is a pretty, I've heard this referred to as like a pig butchering scam, where basically people offer like all these investments and like show this insane portfolio and like it really looks like a great investment. And then investors end up getting tricked because they're taken along for a ride. They feel like they're making all this money. And then when they try to cash out, guess what? There's no money there. So what's interesting is like as a parting like kick, a lot of the times these groups will actually, they'll like charge you a bunch of fees to withdraw your fake money that you've been making in their fake environment. And that's like the final little bump that they get. This was a very active group. It was active in Bulgaria, Cyprus, and Ukraine. And also I think that there was some in Israel. So there was a call center. There was a lot of stuff that was dedicated to getting this scam up and running. So Ukraine, Germany, Spain, Latvia, Finland, and Albania. There were a lot of people involved in this operation. That's why like they made so much money, $98 million. Crazy. And 33,000 victims means that they had to deal with a huge range of victims and basically convince them and like be able to deal with them increasingly becoming aware and disillusioned that this was a scam. So when you have something like this kind of like crazy scheme, you basically need to get it up and running and lots of people on it and then shut it down and cash out because people start to talk, you know, you need to start up new fronts, whatever. It seems like this was a huge operation and it was just impressive that like $98 million is just a lot. All right, so this is not a very surprising story. Russian hackers have been attacking NATO and EU information centers, attempting to get information about foreign governments. I wonder why. Could there be possibly some sort of international thing happening that would make secret NATO information of much use to the Russians? I will just say that this is neither unexpected nor particularly remarkable. So while I'm going to mention it because it is timely, it is pretty par for the course. That is what they're going to be doing during the war in Ukraine. So.
Breaking news, Kody, and water's still wet.
Yeah, and Russia is interested in classified documents from NATO. Who knew? All right, moving on. Here we go. So this is really interesting. We've talked a lot about how IoT devices facilitate all these different denial of service attacks, which have increasingly began to operate like ransomware. They will target a service that is essential and take it down for long periods of time unless you pay them. And this could be like an ill-timed moment or something else that would motivate somebody to pay the ransom. So in this case, it looks like they're switching over to VPS infrastructure. And the reason there is these are networking devices with more power. They have access to more protocols, and they can do a lot more clever things to generate just absolute torrents of traffic. And there's lots of techniques that you can use, like reflection or amplification, to like start with a relatively small amount of traffic and then bounce it off tons of internet devices and focus it on a single point. Some of this is spoofing. Like there's lots of interesting ways of doing it, but seeing the fundamental shift of IoT-based botnets to VPS botnet attacks is pretty crazy. You can see my vote for least confusing graphic of the stream. This one's like pretty clear. You get a little trickle of
Mhm.
rain with the IoT devices because they're small, and then boom, you get a big storm cloud with this cloud computing provider. Boom.
Mhm.
So obviously, like the cloud computing provider is going to provide the client with a bill for like $5,000, and they're going to be like, "Why did I spend $5,000 on DNS?"
Right.
Right, and so they're going to detect it probably at some point. But these breached or like stolen infrastructure are just so easier to use for these
Mhm.
sorts of attacks because they can be scaled and they have a lot more capability. Um, let's see. Oh wow, we've got an offer in the chat. Isn't that great? Veronis isn't enough. Someone wants to offer to sponsor and promote our channel. Well, I'm going to delete that comment. So goodbye. All right, moving on. That was spam. It's nice to get our channel big enough that we're just getting spam now. All right, so data breaches. We got Hyundai with a data breach exposing owner details in France and Italy. So this fortunately does not seem to involve like much financial information. It's just their email address, physical address, telephone number, and vehicle chassis number. There were some breaches a while ago where that could be a problem.
Mhm.
Although it was usually like the vehicle's like serial number or whatever that was actually, or the VIN number that was actually the problem. So again, not serial numbers or financial data, but this is perfect for phishing. So again, this is like not necessarily something where they need to start getting, free credit reporting or whatever, but it is something where they should probably expect some phishing attacks now that they've been identified as a particular person that does business with a particular company and they
Mhm.
have all their vehicle information. Like that is enough to come up with a pretty convincing phishing attack if you've got access to even the free version of ChatGPT. All right, so a series now of Apple-related disclosures. This is something I
Mm.
saw in all sorts of places. A lot of people were freaked out about this. There was a series of recently disclosed zero-day vulnerabilities in older iPhones and iPads that were being used to attack very high-profile people in a number of different countries. This is something that lots of security organizations were pushing patches for. The next 3 stories are literally about this stuff. So these were for iPhone 6s, 7s, SEs, iPad Air 2, iPad Mini, iPad Touch, and these flaws, again, were actively exploited as part of an exploit chain, I believe, by an Israeli like spyware company. So the
Mhm.
same way we were seeing these sorts of attacks that were raising a lot of attention like a year ago, we're starting to see more of these zero-day vulnerabilities tied to these private spyware vendors, which caused, frankly, some panic. A lot
Yeah.
of people were worried about the vectors of this, which one of them was an invisible calendar invite.
Oh.
So
Mm.
I every time this picture comes up on the stream, I hate it. What is he doing? Um, anyway, so this is called End of Days, and it's by an Israeli company called Quadream. So this is a spyware company that used basically flaws in old iPhones of high-risk individuals to send a zero-click exploit.
Mm.
Zero-click exploits are the nasty, expensive ones that nation states love to buy because you can infect a target without them needing to do anything.
Mhm.
One-click exploits are a little cheaper. Those are like where they have to click on a link or open a file, and those are much more readily available. Zero-click exploits are considered extremely expensive and also very effective at infecting victims. So that is my suspicion why we're seeing this big hubbub around everything getting rolled out. These silent calendar updates are something that can allow a victim to be compromised without any sort of interaction whatsoever. So if you have an affected phone, you are vulnerable until this patch is applied. And that is why not only Apple, but CISA ordered
Mhm.
government agencies to patch that stuff because this is no joke. My suspicion is that the price of this malware is low enough that the US government feels like pretty much anybody could buy it
Right.
who wants to take a run at the US government. So that means everybody's got to patch their stuff. So anytime you see 3 separate stories about the same vulnerability, you know that it's pretty severe. So the US government getting involved to tell everyone, I mean, we got security updates about this at work.
Yep.
Like, I was really hearing a lot about that. And that means that this was like a very commonly available, probably relatively low cost, extremely dangerous set of spyware. Again, by one of these spyware vendors out of Israel that makes a name for themselves by making incredibly intrusive, very easy to use spyware and then selling it to the highest bidder. I'm
Yeah.
not a huge fan, as you can probably imagine, of this business model because it causes trickle down effects where
Mhm.
people with older devices become more and more vulnerable as these zero-day exploits become cheaper and cheaper. So yeah, they kind of suck. I don't like them. And yeah, just not a fan. All right, next step. So we've got Kody discloses a data breach about form database for sale online. No, I don't have a form database. This is just the Kody project. And the foundation disclosed that hackers have stolen their MyBB form database. That's really all about this. You should assume that any passwords are breached at this point, or compromised, as they said. Even though it is supposed to generate hash and salted passwords, it is apparently not secure enough to count that this did not potentially breach your password. So if you have the same password anywhere else, now would be a great time to change that. All right, we're coming up on our time. I think we've got just a couple left to go. So North Korean hackers were confirmed to be a supply chain attack against 3CX. This was like a 10-year-old vulnerability in Windows that they used to infect this group. So Mandy did the investigation, and yeah, it looks like this was targeting Mac OS systems. Again, like just more kind of nation state stuff. The most remarkable thing about this was that it was such an old exploit that they used. So they're a phone system apparently that's used by over 600,000 companies. So you can imagine with companies like American Express, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Air France, IKEA, this sort of like supply chain attack could potentially give the attackers access to a lot of interesting information, or set them up for some really good social engineering attacks. So kind of spooky. This one's super fast. We talk about KFC, Pizza Hut, and other Yum brands food stores being shut down in the UK for a while. Well, it appears that they were the victim of a double exploitation ransomware attack. And that means that it seems like they are sending breach notification letters to people, informing them that their information has been exposed, that including names, driver's license numbers, and other ID card numbers. It seems like this primarily affects employees. So yet again, we are giving out, well, somebody's giving out free credit monitoring as we announce every week. Next up, we have a payroll system that is currently down and under cyber attack. This is SD Works in the UK. This manages a lot of different companies' payroll, 82,000 companies' payroll. So this is one of those supply chain attacks where like it's a really big deal when they get hit because it affects tons of other businesses. Not being able to pay your people is a big deal. It seems as though right now they've updated us and they've said that it is not a ransomware attack. It is some sort of cyber attack that's caused them to shut down their portal and investigate. But we will see. They have, as of yet, there's concern that sensitive data was stolen during the attack, and that's why they've shut it down. It doesn't look like a full-on ransomware attack, so that's nice at least, but still very concerning for that company. We're coming up on time. All right, so CISA is ordering agencies to patch the backup exec bugs used by ransomware gangs. This is just another push by CISA to try to get people to at least be on the same page when it comes to some of these really easy vulnerabilities that are either being actively exploited by for-profit groups or that are available for for-profit customers as ransomware. As spyware. So those are really the two big categories of what CISA is covering. They really want to make sure that they're protected against ransomware attacks, and they really want to make sure they're protected against spyware. So this list of vulnerabilities that people involved in government need to scan for and then take care of has grown to like 90 something different, or I think it's like 911 vulnerabilities. Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a lot of work. And I honestly wonder like what sorts of tools are available to different agencies to try to take on this massive task of like remediating all these different vulnerabilities. But I guess we'll see. All right, so last story, and this is one that's really interesting. So this is the FBI warning of companies exploiting sextortion victims for profit. So what is this? Well, I've actually had an experience with this myself. So when I was, I think like 19 or 20, there was a company that was going around and posting compromising images of people on the internet and then demanding money to take it down. And this was actually a really common business model around the time. It was interesting because it was everything for me was like not that bad. I was just like, put it up. I look great. I don't care. But a lot of people were caught up in this where they would get a notification saying, hey, your images have gone up on the site. Like you need to pay to take them down. And you would be brought through this complicated process. And like they would charge all this money. They would kind of threaten you. And then often they either wouldn't take it down or they would pop it up on a second website that they also owned and charge you all over again. They would prey on people's fear, embarrassment. And fortunately, I had neither. But a lot of people were really, really like emotionally damaged from this sort of like traumatic cycle of having like private photos leak on the internet and having a for-profit company be able to just extort you over it.
Right.
This sort of reputational extortion is exactly the kind of stuff that got like the mugshots.com people like thrown into jail. And I'm glad because it's a horrible model.
Yeah.
And it has been becoming more popular as people figure out that this is something that people will pay for. But fortunately, the FBI is clamping down on this. They're providing a number of different resources to be able to report it and hopefully have someone take care of it from the FBI, as opposed to going through one of these like sketchy vendors that have popped up to attempt to profit off of this super unfortunate circumstance. So the FBI has a hotline where you can call, and it also has started to outline some penalties. So so these are some examples of what some of these companies were trying to do. There's a lot. I'm hoping there's a lot more penalties than there used to be, because like they really had to make examples of some of these people in order to get that sort of thing to stop. But yeah, pretty crazy, and definitely a model that I hope gets shut down. And while I'm here, I'm going to go to Varonis.com/Kody so I can talk about the state of cybercrime that just went live on the 13th. So if you enjoy these updates on news, you can also check out the State of Cybercrime put on by our sponsor, Varonis, who is responsible for this awesome stream. So big shout out to them. And again, there's awesome content on the Varonis.com channel. I make sure to update the link every week. So if you want to see what's going on this week, head to Varonis.com/Kody, and you can find out what's going on in the State of Cybercrime. Plus, there's a lot of cool like demos that we also do showing what a real attack looks like, or what real incident response looks like. So check that out. And I think that's all the time we have for this week. I want to thank everybody in the chat. Restream has logged me out of the chat for some reason, so I can't reply at the moment. But I see all of your chats, and it was super active today. I have a lot of fun doing this, especially when so many people jump on. So thank you to everybody asking questions, shouting out in the chat, answering other people's questions, telling them not to confess to crimes on the internet, and everything else that we've done today. And thank you, Killian, for making time on a Friday to hang out with us and go over the hacking news.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right. Well, we will see you guys next week. Make sure to check out the stream on Wednesday. And I'm going to be in Los Angeles and then in San Francisco. I think we're going to try to do a live stream at the RSA conference. So if you're going to be there, shout out to me, come by and say hello, play our Wi-Fi hacking game, and hopefully we'll see you there. All right, everyone. See you next time.
Take care.